Warning, the following podcast is brought to you by dads who can never remember the Wi-Fi password. Welcome to the All Pro Dad Podcast.
Hey, welcome to All Pro Dad Podcast. My name is Ted Lowe, and today I'm joined by Bobby Lewis and BJ Foster. Together, we have 9 kids and way more questions than that. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing well.
I'm all stressed out, Ted. I'm all stressed out.
That's how my life rolls. BJ, do you ever get stressed out?
Yeah. Particularly in fatherhood. I remember early, my son had just been born. I was working as a financial advisor and a miserable failure at that, and had a lot of friends, by the way, who were financial advisors, and they were crushing it, and all having kids and stuff, and doing well and renovating their houses and buying new cars. And we were quite frankly, I'll just be honest, we were having trouble making the mortgage. It was kind of one of those situations, and it just felt like at every turn things were going wrong. And I just remember one night, we needed diapers, and so my wife sent me out to go get them. And it's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm at a red light and I'm stressed out. I'm getting diapers that we can't afford. And I just start going off and I just start yelling, and I go into a tirade and I'm yelling and I finally end up saying it. And I'm so tired of everything sucking. And I mean, I'm screaming. And then all of a sudden, when like you've done something and then you think you're alone and you sort of see something out of the corner of your eye and you're like, what is that? And I turn and I look over at this red light, and there's another car there. And to make matters worse, it's just filled with teenage girls, and they're all staring at me like wide-eyed. And so I just kind of looked back at them and then just sort of looked forward, like nothing really kind of happened. But yeah, that is probably one of the situations in marriage, fatherhood, that was one of the most stressed I think I've kind of ever felt, where all of a sudden I'm at a stoplight at 10 o'clock with a thing of diapers, Pampers next to me, just screaming like a lunatic.
So how do you feel knowing that you're single-handedly responsible for 4 teenage girls not having children because you overreacted so much to your stress?
I don't know. I'm not going to own that, but I will say that I'm a story. For them, I'm a reoccurring. I tell the story again about the lunatic guy at that light that one night.
Or they're talking to their friends. They're like, at least I'm not as bad as this guy I saw one time. Yeah.
Right. Look at this dude.
BJ, does it make me a bad person that I would have given anything to see that moment?
No, I get that.
And you're talking about, stress 10 years ago. Like, I'm stressed in this very moment. In this very moment, I've got a lot on my plate right now. And I'm just, as we, talk about this episode, I'm like, I'm really going to resonate with this one because I'm sitting in it right now. In fact, I'm going to leave. I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to go to a red light and just freak out.
Yeah.
Because it obviously worked for you, right, BJ?
I mean, yeah, I think it helped to get all of it out there. Of course, I felt like an idiot, and we laughed about it when I got home and I told my wife what had happened. So it helped to kind of get all of that out there in the short term, but really in the long term, it helped a lot. It helped a lot in the long term. And because it was one of those moments where it's just one of those things you always come back to. And if I'm being really honest, my tirade was against God in that moment. Because when I watch the movie Bruce Almighty, I relate to it so much. Like when he's going off, you're the one that deserves to be fired, you're not doing your job. And and he even just kind of, looks at him looks at God in the face and tells him, he's like, you suck, because, and I have had that is exactly what was going on in that moment. And God communicated, fortunately, I think he's strong enough. He can take it. And he spoke back, gave me a little perspective. And it's one of those things now when I go through stressful situations, I got through that. And I got to the other side of that, and I'm fine. And I always come back to that. Like whenever things start to boil up, I'm like, I remember when I had trouble hitting the mortgage. I had trouble paying the mortgage, and yet somehow I had what I needed and got through it. And so it did help. It's like a pin moment in time that I come back to.
Yeah. I'm glad you have that. That's a cool thing you can look back on. I was talking to my wife about that this weekend. I was like, I've just kind of been feeling like more stressed than usual lately. And she's like, really? And I was kind of thinking about it, how I show stress differently than maybe she shows it. And I think we all kind of use the word stress as this big, broad term. But it has a definition. I think it's helpful for us as we go forward in this conversation to actually not use stress as a catch-all term, but actually understand what it really is.
That's good, Bobby. Absolutely. Let's dive into that. Stress is the way your body deals with real or perceived threats. It's the response it could be physiological or it be psychological. And the American Psychological Association says there's 3 types of stress. There's number 1, it's the acute. It's the short-lived. This is the kind of stress that shows up fast when something immediate feels threatening or demanding, like a deadline, a tough conversation, or even hitting traffic is acute stress. It's your body's built-in fight or flight response. Your heart rate goes up. You sense, your senses sharpen, and you're ready to act. In small bursts, this kind of stress can actually help you perform better or stay alert. The key is that it's temporary. It comes and goes once the situation passes. So acute, not a bad thing, definitely needed. Then there's episodic. And episodic stress occurs when your daily life has constant demands, when you're experiencing never-ending obstacles, or when you constantly worry about something. Mm-hmm. Feeling that hand up from Ted if you're just listening. And then it takes episodic a step further into chronic. And this is long-term, and this is less common, but one of the 3 types of stress, chronic stress, is the most harmful as it takes a devastating toll on the mind and the body over a long period of time. People with chronic stress may report that their stress feels like it's never ending and might have difficulty imagining a life without it. And the American Psychological Association reports that sometimes people do not realize that they're experiencing chronic stress because it's become part of their lives. So it becomes their normalcy. I'm just reading these going, I'm relating to these a little more than I want to right now.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the APA, American Psychological Association. I was doing some research, reading some stuff that they've done over the years about stress, specifically with men. And they did a Stress in America study in 2024 that said, here are all the stressors. Would you guys like to guess what the top 3 stressors are for men specifically?
For me, it's finance.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 1, finances. Yeah, and the reason that I found this interesting is that specific to men, finances was number 1, but this was only tracked as far back as 2007. And so every year since 2007 when it's been tracked, it has been number 1. But that doesn't mean it wasn't number 1 600 years ago. It just means that since they've been tracking it, stress with finances has been the number 1 thing with men every single year, which I found interesting.
I get that. I think there's, it's kind of funny. A friend of mine would always say, like, gosh, out of the things that would stress people out, whether it's death, disease, or finance, he goes, I would choose finance every time. and I'm like, yeah, I guess that's true. But it's the financial aspect is something that's always weighed on me. And I always am, like, there are just varying degrees of what people are okay with. Like, I think some people, it's like they're okay with a lot of credit card debt. Like, they can kind of live with it. Whereas, boy, the second I'm in debt, it weighs on my shoulders immediately. Like, if I owe somebody $5, it's something I'm going to be thinking about forever. Yeah. And some people are okay with it. And other people are okay with a car payment, and even when I have a car payment, I'm like, okay, I guess that's something that I'm going to be thinking about, and it's just going to weigh on me until that's paid off. So I don't know.
Well, according to the APA study, number 1's finances, and it always has been. Number 2 for men, the biggest stressor is jobs. Why is that? Deadlines. performance, stability, especially if you have like a sales job. Now you got 1 and 2 are like intertwined, right? A survey from the Fatherhood Institute found that 45% of dads get stressed out trying to figure out their work-life balance. And we had a conversation with Hall of Famer Tony Dungy about that. We'll link it down below. It was episode 31 about how to do that. And so stress around jobs, that was number 2. And then stress around relationships was number 3. So finances, job, relationships, those are the top 3. And it's wild because 60% of fathers say that work-life balance negatively impacts relationships. So now stress number 1 can be tied to number 2, and stress number 2 can be tied to number 3. And it's this snowball thing. It's just, it never ends. And that's how you end up in this cycle of guys just feeling that weight you mentioned, BJ, all the time.
Stressing me out.
Sorry, Ted. I didn't mean to stress you out with all these stats.
This podcast has not been helpful for Ted so far, but we'll get to that. There's a great movie called The Paper that few people know about, but it's one of my favorites. And Robert Duvall, who's fantastic, is in that movie, and he's talking to a guy, and he says 99% of your life, of your effort, goes into 3 main things: your house, your work, and your family. And all 3 of those things have more than you have to give. So what do you do about that? And he started talking about, he's like, your family are people. So you think people will give, they'll bend a little bit. And he said, and what happens? And the guy he's talking to was like, so you crap all over them. And he was like, yeah, you do. And I think a lot of guys, I think this is true of a lot of guys. They want to remove stress. So when you've got financial stress and you've got work stress, well, the 2 of those can kind of work off of each other, because if you work harder at work, you accomplish more, and then your paycheck goes up. And so then maybe you're not struggling so much with your financial aspect of things. And what happens is our family gets neglected in all of that. But let's get an idea of, so like the biggest stressors by age. I thought this was kind of an interesting breakdown. So if your ages 18 and 39, your biggest stressor is finances. Somehow I've kept that into my 50s.
Going, huh? Yeah.
So I guess I never grew out of that. But most people, it's finances. Ages 40 to 55, it's work. And then ages 56 and up, it's health, which I think is interesting because I've started to kind of, as I've just started to get into my 50s, like I've started to think about health more and more, and was involved in a basketball game with it was like a parents versus kids game. And it was just, they're teenagers, and some of them are like in 8th grade. And it was unbelievable. It felt like I was playing with NBA players, like how much faster they were. And in fact, I was feeling terrible about that until I saw Allen Iverson was on a podcast recently. And he's like, I went out shooting with my daughter, and the next day I woke up and my arm was killing me. And I thought, well, I was just shooting with my daughter. And he said his nickname was The Answer. And he said, Allen Iverson is still here, but The Answer died and went to heaven a long time ago. So I'm starting to think about health more and more. Yeah. But what do you guys stress out about most?
I think for me, it's definitely work. It's probably always been. My kids, there's levels of stress. But when I think of the word stress and what it does in the body, I would definitely think it's work for me. I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist, and I try to white knuckle it or work harder, longer, faster, more efficiently, and that can be very stressful for me, even though I know better.
Yeah. I'm like you, BJ. It's finances for me. And part of that is due to the fact that my family's made a decision to be a 1-income family, and my wife is a stay-at-home mom. And so that brings its own challenges, trying to, take care of a home with just 1 income. But we've chosen that. So I can't really complain about it too much, but there's still like a stress that kind of is there because, you'll end up getting credit card debt or other things. And it's just always in the back of your mind, how am I going to pay for that today? I
think the reality is everybody listening to one degree or the other struggles with stress. And so that's why our big question of the week is, how does stress impact us as dads, and what can we do about it? So the reality, number one, is when you're stressed, you're not yourself. You may say things that you regret. I texted my kids in fear and trembling, and I said, hey, my adult kids, like, how do you remember me handling stress when you're growing up? And my oldest son texted back, you would go and get gas. And I laughed because I would make an excuse to go get myself together, basically. Take a breath. I'm frustrated right now. I just need to get myself together. But my daughter says, yes, you would go to the gym or you'd go get gas, but you were also more easily frustrated. Ouch. So that wasn't great. Another thing is you may not feel well. You just don't physically feel well, and you may be easily distracted and not present for your family.
Yeah, Ted, I did the same thing. I asked my kids, hey, can you tell when daddy is stressed? And they're like, oh, yeah, we can tell because they're like, you snap more easily. Your fuse is so much shorter. And that happened recently. I don't feel good about it. But we had a situation where we had a pipe overflow in our bathroom and water got out into our room. So we had to rip up all the flooring. And so I'm in there in the afternoon all weekend trying to rip up flooring and move furniture. And, I'm stressed out about like, is there bacteria under the floor? Not like, I got to get rid of all this. I don't have enough garbage cans, all that stuff, that you think about. And my son came in and he didn't care about any of that. He wants to play, right? Hey, can we go throw the ball or whatever? And I was just so focused on fixing this problem. And it's like, no, can you just, no, I'm busy. I can't go play with you right now. And I didn't mean to snap at him like that. But I was feeling the stress of trying to fix this problem. And honestly, I don't remember if I went back and apologized to him or not. I need to go think about whether I've done that or need to do that. But I basically said, I don't care about you right now. I care about this right now. That was kind of what I feel like I communicated in that moment because of the stress. And that's not the way I normally would act. But when you're stressed out, you don't act like yourself,
Well, here's another reality. The fact that men, unfortunately, don't talk about stress with other people. We get all this. I think there's a lot of discussion about men being self-reliant, men being strong. And the worst thing in the world is to be perceived as weak, which a lot of times we kind of think it's weak to kind of share all of these things. There's even a verse in Ecclesiastes that kind of talks about pity the man that falls and has no one to help him up. And so we ought to lean into that a little bit more, that we all experience this kind of thing. And so we need to share it with others. And then just sometimes practically, when we do feel like it's hard to share, just even finding the opportunities to do it and putting ourselves out there. And sometimes we can even fear there are other men that don't handle it well when we share from the heart. And so there can be even just kind of that fear of, how are they going to respond with this? Are they going to be able to respond? Are they going to be able to jump in it with me and be along my side? So,
yeah. And this is something we got to push through though, guys. We got to push through and find our people. We just can't be alone in this thing called stress. We got to bring people in. And so if you're listening, like, who are your people? Who are your guys that you can trust, that you can be real with? How can that happen? And for some of us, depending on where you are in stress, you might need to talk to somebody, whether that's a pastor or a mentor or even a counselor, because it can build up, and you're starting to become the person and the dad you don't want to be. So it's just walking with the wise, right? That's all a counselor is, but we need community so badly.
Well, and that's the thing. I think it's like the last thing that we want to feel like is a burden, like that we are coming in with our heaviness and our, and particularly financial stuff, because financial stuff makes us feel so vulnerable. I've talked in the past about that my son getting in an accident and not getting the insurance that we needed, and feeling the financial weight of that and feeling like I've made all these mistakes. It's really hard to kind of put that out there for other people to judge. And, you just kind of want to bottle it up and kind of deal with it yourself.
Yeah, that verse you mentioned from Ecclesiastes, BJ, it also says a threefold cord is not easily broken. You think about a rope that's like 3 pieces that are wound together. That's much stronger than like one piece by itself. So you're trying to do things by yourself. You're not as strong as you are if you don't have someone on your left and your right holding you up to make you stronger. And that's a bad example to set for our kids, which kind of leads us into the third reality here, which is your kids are learning how to deal with stress from you. I mean, you are their biggest example. You're right there in their home. They see how you're handling it. If you're losing yourself all the time when you're all stressed out and you're not acting the way you want to act, they're going to see that. Of course they are. And they're going to model that too. So it's an important challenge for dads to be the calmest person in the room. I tend to be pretty good at that naturally. That's just kind of my disposition, my demeanor. But that's not always the case. And I flip out sometimes, you know?
Oh, Bobby, I'm not the calmest person in the room when I'm the only person in the room. I've got a rescue dog who was abused, and he's more calm than me. So, gosh, I feel like I'm having to air it out on this episode. I promise you guys, I'm okay. You don't need to call anybody. No interventions. I'm okay. It's just I'm just thinking there's a lot of dads like me right now. If you're stressed episodically now.
A tip for you, if you want to be the calmest person in the room, is measure the situation and respond accordingly as best as you can. Don't give a major reaction to a minor thing, or don't give a minor reaction to a major thing. Keep perspective, and hopefully you'll react to that stressor appropriately.
Well, and here's an interesting thing. Like, your kids are going to stress out about the things that you stress out about. Like, similar to what you said, Bobby, that our kids are learning from us how to handle stress. And stress, the way that, like you said, Ted, is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, sometimes stress gets us into good things. I think the problem is when we overanalyze, when we become paralyzed by it, when we white knuckle it kind of through, by ourselves, when we isolate ourselves, when we become irritable and take it out on them, or when we face just kind of even just the physical effects, that's when I think it becomes detrimental to us and to our families. So kids are going to handle stress the way that we handle it. And so I think, reiterating what you said there, Bobby, kind of, we're modeling how to handle stress, and we need to keep that in mind.
So let's talk about positive ways to do this. How do we deal with our stress in positive ways as dads? I'm glad we're finally here, so my nervous system can calm down.
All
so
right,
Bobby,
Ted,
the calmest person that I know.
I will talk directly to you, Ted. No one else is listening, just you, Ted. You ready? The number one thing that you can do if you're a dad who feels stressed, and it sounds so elementary and simple, is to breathe. And you're like, oh, okay, whatever, breathe, blah, blah. No, like, there is actual science that proves that breathing changes your body's chemistry. I was listening to a podcast with Andrew Huberman. Maybe you've heard his name before. He has a very popular podcast. He's a neuroscientist, PhD professor at Stanford School of Medicine. And he did a whole conversation about breathing. And it was fascinating to me. Basically, when you breathe, if you do this, you breathe in as deeply as you can, or at least as deeply as you think you can. And then you take one little extra little inhale, and then you exhale longer than you've inhaled. It signals to your brain to drop your heart rate. And when that happens, you start to calm down. So you do this for 20 to 30 seconds, and your body is going to get rid of carbon dioxide. It's going to calm you down quickly. Also, exhaling longer than you are inhaling gets the brain to send a signal down to your heart to speed things up, and it increases blood flow to all the areas of your body that actually need to activate to fight off stress. So breathing is a simple yet very effective thing to do if you're stressed.
That's so good. It's so true. It's amazing how late in life I found that out, that deep breaths are a really, really good thing. And that prescribed way is super powerful.
You know, what's funny is I actually had the opportunity this week to do it with my kids, because we've been preparing for these episodes and just studying different things about stress. And I could tell my son was really stressed out. And I said, all right, I know what to do. We are going to breathe. So do this. And we breathe in and we get that big inhale. And then I said, all right, one more little extra one. And he's like, I don't think I can. I said, you can. And he gets one more little inhale. And I said, exhale slowly. And I was watching it happen in real time. He just calmed down, and it took about a minute or so, but man, everything was different a minute later. So it really does work.
Maybe that's
Absolutely.
what happened when I was yelling on that street, that like I was exhaling a lot.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when daughter was having panic attacks, and that's when I learned if I would kind of lay beside her and kind of model breathing, what that felt like, she would start to model that back. And so, yeah, it's so huge. It's amazing, just what it does to our body. Another thing we can do to help manage stress is to name the stress. I've mentioned a couple of times I'm working on a book on marriage and emotions. And one of the things that can calm our nervous system the most is naming the emotion. Whether it's finances, am I afraid? Am I frustrated? Am I sad? Do I feel ashamed? Like, what is the emotion that's tied to this? When I think about work, what's tied to this? Is my worth tied to this? Is, what am I looking for? Like, what's going on? And what's so funny about working on this book about emotions, I consider myself an emotional person. And so I thought, I'm going to be ready to write this book, something I know about. And then I realized I'm really bad at naming my emotions. Like, feels like I'm either okay, fun, or angry. It comes out as anger. And so you guys were not meeting in person today. So if we were, you might throw something at me or punch me, but we're going to put a feelings wheel in the show notes. I have actually pulled out a feelings wheel, which is basically, it shows you a series of emotions, all these different emotions. And I made fun of a guy who had me to endorse his book that had a feelings wheel in it. I said, I love the whole book, but the feelings wheel feels very childish to me. Yeah. I am now pulling out the feelings wheel on the regular. So we'll put one of those in the show notes, but it calms our nervous system when we simply name the emotion. You're not fixing anything. You're not trying to change anything. It's just naming it calms the nervous system. And it really does.
I'm not throwing anything at you. I think it's fine. Well, I just love the fact that now you're writing a book about feelings. That's so ironic that you ripped into a guy.
BJ is going to write a book about the steering wheel and how that helps.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of things that I could write a book about that I shouldn't write a book about. I think the next thing that we need to do is talk about it. We need to get it out there. I think one of the most important things, even just in talking about it, is giving permission for more men to talk about it. I have found this, that when I take the lead in telling people what I'm stressed about or the things that I'm having difficulty with, I more often than not, I get other men who tell me that they're experiencing the same thing, or give me encouragement, or tell me to hang in there, or give me some kind of perspective, which it makes me feel like I'm not alone. It's empowering to me. It makes me feel stronger. It makes it a lot easier to deal with what I'm dealing with. And quite frankly, I've gotten to a place where I need it. And so if you're a guy who doesn't like somebody who's going to share the tough stuff that's going on in their lives, you're not going to be a friend of mine. And not because I'm not choosing you, you're just going to choose not to be around me because you're not going to want to hear it. And I've just kind of gotten to a place where I'm I'm okay if you walk away, and I get if you're walking away, but I've got to unload and share what's happening.
Yes, that's right. We've got to find those guys in our life, and we got to be selective on who they are, because we can find a group of guys that will pour gas on our stress. We're talking about being frustrated with our wives, and they say things like, well, absolutely, you should be frustrated, and even start talking about, hey, you need to tell her X, Y, Z. We don't want those people. We need people that are going to have some empathy, but they're also going to have some wisdom. Another step is for us is to pour into ourselves. We had an episode about me time, which can sound very selfish, but we've got to have some of that me time. There's just some things that every man needs to have, every person needs to have. And it's sleep and it's exercise. And again, it's that strong social connections with other people. We've got to be really careful, especially when we're stressed, to do this thing. And this has become more important to me. The older I get, the more I travel, the more I'm like, I've got to be really careful. I mean, you guys make fun of me when I record about, oh, you're going to make us eat something good. Listen, nobody wants to rip a burger more than me, but I have learned it's like, I need to do that for my body. I need to do that for the long term. And exercise too. Just what a quick walk does for exercise is absolutely massive. So, and exercise can be cumulative, right? Like if you go, oh, I don't have time for a walk, do 10 squats, like do 10 push-ups. It starts easy. It doesn't have to be, you're maxing out at the gym all the time, 10 days a week. It doesn't work like that. And I would say pour into yourself by laughing and having fun and letting go. Like, who are those people you're going to laugh with? You want friends you can talk to, but you also want friends you can laugh with. So I think that's a huge, huge thing.
Well, I want to reiterate something that you said. You said it really quick. But people's eyes are going to glaze over when I say it. But sleep, I think, is one of the most important. It is the thing that is sacrificed the first. It's like the first thing sacrificed in our lives. And we kind of think, oh, I'll work harder and I'll earn more money and I'll sacrifice sleep in order to do it. And it just is counterintuitive to everything. It makes our processing slower and less clear. When we lose sleep. And according to Johns Hopkins, less sleep leads to higher risk of depression. So like our energy levels come down, the way we view ourselves, the way we view the world, we just approach it with a dimness, and we need to be alive. And I got to say, this is one of the things that I'm gotten older that I don't sacrifice as much. Like when I'm ready to go down, I go down. And so we've got to get more sleep.
Well, with that, we will jump into our pro move of the week. We're going to give you a couple of options. One is practice breathing. Another is to find a trusted person you can lean on when you're stressed. Talk to that person about your stress level and come up with a plan on how to lower it. But Bobby, what was that breathing exercise? I feel like for me, I'm going to take that home.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, we can do it now if you want. You want to practice it?
Yeah. All of us do it, and everybody listening do it.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. All right, so I'll just speak you through it. You can do it. I won't do it because it'll be confusing if I do it and say it at the same time. But so breathe, inhale as long as you think you can. Probably take 4 or 5 seconds. Then when you think you can't take any more, do like one little sniff more, and then slowly exhale. And that's maybe a 10-second process. You inhale, for 5, 6, 7 seconds, one more gulp of air, and then slowly exhale. You do that 3 times, you're going to probably start to feel that stress melt away. It sounds silly. Like I know guys at home are like, I'm not doing that. No, really do it. Like try it, because I guarantee you, I did it with my son earlier this week. It will make a difference. The stress will start to melt away. You'll feel better. And if you have to do it multiple times a day, so be it. The goal is to be a less stressed out dad. So do whatever you have to do to be that guy.
No matter where you are, you guys are listening, wherever your stress level is, you can take steps to calming it down. Find you some great people. Breathe a little bit. It really does matter. You guys, thanks for the great discussion. And for those of you listening or watching, if this episode's been good for you, could you send it to a friend? It helps other dads to find us. But we want to say, most of all, thank you for joining us. We know you and your kids will be glad that you did.
Thanks again for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. Behind every episode is our amazing team. Producer Haley Mawat, audio and video editor Buck Buchanan, and production coordinator Corey Walliff. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. So remember, if you have more questions than answers, then you're probably in the right place. See you next time.